Ready to explore the fascinating world of love. Not the fleeting kind, no, the kind that lasts. We're diving into Gary Chapman's The Five Love Languages today, a book that's helped millions understand giving and receiving love. You know,
It's a classic for a reason.
exactly. We're breaking down excerpts, key ideas from the book, right? Plus, we've got some insightful anecdotes from Chapman himself.
And that's going to be really interesting.
Consider this your cheat sheet to the language of love. By the end, you'll not only know your love language, but also the ones spoken by those closest to you.
And that's where things get interesting. So often we see miscommunication, right?
Mm.
Unmet needs, and it's all because partners are unknowingly speaking different love languages.
Like trying to follow a recipe in a language you don't understand. Frustrating, right? And ultimately, unsatisfying.
Exactly.
And that brings us to that central question Chapman poses. What happens to love after the wedding? He opens with this poignant encounter on an airplane, heartbroken man, 3 failed marriages, struggling with that question of why love seems to disappear after the honeymoon phase.
You know, it's a question that resonates with so many. We've all felt that initial spark fade, right? Wondered, where did those butterflies go?
Mm-hmm.
But Chapman argues that this disillusionment comes from not understanding how to keep love alive.
Or how to keep each other's love tanks full, as he puts it.
Exactly.
Okay, so break that down. The love tank analogy, what is that exactly?
Well, think of it like this. We all have this emotional need to feel loved, appreciated.
Right.
And that need, it's represented by this love tank,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay.
Just like a car can't run on empty, right? We
Yeah.
can't thrive in relationships without our love tanks consistently refilled.
That makes sense. So the fuel, so to speak, for our love tanks is...
The way our specific love language is spoken, Chapman outlines 5 distinct ways people feel loved, okay?
Okay.
Words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
Ah, the famous 5. But before we dive into each one, let's talk about that initial rush of falling in love, right?
Yes. So intoxicating. Those feelings, right?
Yeah.
Complete absorption in the other person. Belief that they're absolutely perfect. And the conviction that this will last forever.
You know, that intense euphoria is a powerful cocktail. Instinct, hormones, the whole thing. But it's important to understand that it's not sustainable in the long run.
Right.
The in-love stage. Nature's trick to, bring couples together.
Uh-huh.
Building a lasting connection, though, requires conscious effort, conscious choice.
It's like the difference between, a fireworks display, dazzling but fleeting, and a slow, steady fire
Right.
that keeps you warm all night long.
Exactly. Real love, the kind that endures. It's not just a feeling, it's a choice. It's about understanding your partner's needs and consistently expressing love in a way that resonates with them. And that's where those 5 love languages come in, through the roadmap, right? To understanding what truly makes your partner feel loved, appreciated.
And as you learn to speak your partner's love language, you're essentially, filling their love tank.
Exactly. Preventing those feelings of emptiness,
Yeah.
resentment that can creep in when needs go unmet.
Precisely. So let's start unpacking these love languages, shall we? The first one, words of affirmation, it really highlights how deeply some people crave those verbal expressions of love. Appreciation.
It's not just about the grand declarations of love, though, right?
No, not at all.
It's about those smaller, everyday acknowledgments that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Think genuine compliments, words of encouragement, those expressions of gratitude that really resonate with someone whose primary love language is words of affirmation.
Chapman, he tells this funny story about a woman who desperately wanted her husband to paint their bedroom. Right? She tried everything, nagging, pleading, even bribing him with his favorite food. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
But then she tried a different approach.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what he wasn't doing, she started complimenting him on the things he was doing.
Yeah.
She'd express genuine appreciation for him taking out the trash, paying the bills on time.
Yeah, those little acts of responsibility.
Exactly. So instead of criticism, she chose words of affirmation. Did that shift, did that eventually lead to the bedroom being painted?
It did. By creating that positive, appreciative atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
She unintentionally motivated him to want to do things for her. And guess what? He painted the bedroom.
Yeah.
It really just shows how powerful words can be in shaping behavior, nurturing that sense of love and appreciation.
It makes you realize how easily we slip into patterns of negativity, criticism. Choosing to focus on the positive, expressing those words of affirmation, it can have a ripple effect on the whole relationship.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a bit. Explore quality time. This one, it's all about giving your partner your undivided attention, being fully present in the moment, engaging with them on a deeper level.
It's about more than just being physically in the same room, right? It's about truly connecting.
Exactly.
Being mentally, emotionally present.
Chapman points out this subtle but telling difference. Okay. Dating couples in restaurants, they're often engrossed in each other, eyes locked, hanging on to every word, right?
Right.
Married couples, they might be in the same space, but not truly connecting, staring at their phones, lost in thought, or, talking logistics instead of sharing their hearts.
Ouch. Yeah, I've definitely seen that disconnect in action. But what about those couples who, they spend lots of time together, they do activities they both enjoy, but still they don't feel that deep connection?
That's a great point. Even shared activities can miss the mark if they don't involve genuine, emotional engagement. Chapman shares this story about Mark, a workaholic husband. He thought he was showing love by providing for his family, working long hours, assuming he was doing what was best,
Right, right.
But his wife, Andrea, she craved something more,
His presence.
His presence, exactly. It's a classic case of missing the point. He was speaking the language of providing, but she needed presence.
It's a classic case of missing the point. He was speaking the language of providing, but she needed presence.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be grand gestures, know. For someone whose love language is quality time, even small moments of connection can be incredibly meaningful. Putting down your phone, having a real conversation, taking a walk together, or just cuddling up, watching a movie. It's about being present, engaged, even for short periods.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to receiving gifts. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about being materialistic or demanding expensive presents.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about the symbolism behind the gift.
Yeah.
The visual reminder, that you are on someone's mind, that they care enough to put thought, effort into finding something special just for you.
Chapman, he tells this story about Doug. This guy was naturally frugal, viewed gift-giving as frivolous, But his wife, Kate, deeply valued this language of love. Doug struggled with it at first. But eventually, he made a conscious effort. Started small. A single flower on the kitchen table, her favorite candy bar from the store. A heartfelt card expressing his appreciation.
And it wasn't the monetary value, but the thoughtfulness behind it that spoke volumes to Kate.
So even small, inexpensive tokens can be incredibly meaningful to someone whose love language is receiving gifts. It's about that tangible expression of love. Care.
Exactly. And it's not about showering someone with gifts 24/7. It's about those thoughtful gestures that demonstrate you understand, what makes them feel special. Now let's move on to acts of service. This one's all about expressing love by doing things for your partner, things that make their life easier or show you're thinking of them.
And again, it doesn't have to be those grand gestures, right? It's those everyday actions that can have a profound impact.
Absolutely. Chapman, he shares a story about a couple, Dave and Mary. From a small mill town, Dave grew up in a household where, chores were divided along traditional gender roles. He brought those expectations into his marriage, assuming Mary would handle all the wifely tasks.
And unsurprisingly, that created tension, right?
Exactly.
Mary felt overwhelmed, unappreciated. Dave, he felt unloved because his expectations weren't being met.
Exactly. They were both speaking different love languages, leading to frustration, resentment. It was only when they understood each other's needs,
Right.
For Dave, acts of service. For Mary, something else we'll discuss later. But, that's when they could begin meeting each other's needs effectively.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is roll up your sleeves, right?
Right.
Help out, whether it's doing dishes, folding laundry, taking care of that errand your partner's been putting off.
Exactly. For someone whose love language is acts of service, these gestures, they speak volumes. Now, last but certainly not least, let's talk about physical touch.
And this one often gets misinterpreted, but it's so much more than just physical intimacy, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's about all forms of physical affection. Holding hands, cuddling, a comforting hug, even just a touch on the arm during a conversation. These gestures communicate love, care, connection to someone whose primary love language is physical touch.
Chapman tells a story about Joe and Maria, a couple who were struggling. They weren't speaking each other's love languages. Joe, his primary language was physical touch. He craved Maria's touch, But she'd been withdrawing physically. She wasn't feeling emotionally connected to him.
It was a vicious cycle, really.
Yeah.
She needed something else to feel loved. And until that need was met, she couldn't reciprocate Joe's need for physical touch.
Right.
They ended up in counseling where they finally uncovered this dynamic, you know.
It's a reminder that physical touch, for many people, it's about feeling loved, desired, connected. And it's not always about sex.
Exactly. And it's important to note that every couple has their own comfort levels, boundaries when it comes to physical affection, right?
Right.
It's about finding what feels right for both partners. So we've explored these 5 distinct languages, right?
Yeah.
But how do we figure out our own and, more importantly, our partners?
Yeah. Chapman provides some really practical guidance in his chapter, Discovering Your Primary Love Language. It's like this personal treasure hunt, right?
Right.
To unlock the secrets of feeling truly loved, appreciated.
One of the most powerful tools he offers is to pay attention to what we complain about most in our relationships. Often, those complaints, they're veiled cries for love, a signal our specific needs aren't being met.
So if you find yourself constantly saying things like, you never compliment me, or why don't we ever spend quality time together? That's a big clue, right?
Exactly. It's like our subconscious is sending up these flares, trying to guide our partners towards what truly matters to us. Chapman also suggests reflecting on what we request most often. Are you always asking for a back rub? A listening ear after a long day? Help with chores? These repeated requests, they can reveal volumes about our love language.
Sometimes it's about looking at the patterns in our behavior, right?
Right.
And for those who still struggle to pinpoint their love language, Chapman offers this clever trick. Revisit the initial in-love phase of a relationship.
Yes. Ask yourself, what did I love most about my partner back then? What made me feel so connected, so cherished? Those early experiences, they often hold valuable clues about what makes us feel most loved.
It's like retracing your steps to find that missing piece of the puzzle. And once you have a better understanding of your own love language, right?
Yeah.
How do you start that conversation with your partner about theirs? It could be a delicate topic.
Absolutely. Chapman suggests this playful but effective tool, the tank check game. Imagine asking your partner, on a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank right now?
It sounds simple, but I can see how that opens the door to honest communication, right?
Exactly.
Without placing blame, getting defensive.
And if their tank isn't full, you can follow up with, what could I do to help fill it up? It's a direct and non-confrontational way to address those needs.
Much better than silently fuming or resorting to passive-aggressive hints, right? Now things get a bit more complex when we talk about loving someone who might not be easy to love.
Right.
In the chapter, Loving the Unlovely, Chapman introduces us to Anne, this woman deeply unhappy in her marriage to Glenn, who seems emotionally distant, uncaring.
This is where that concept of love as a choice comes into play. Chapman challenges us to consider that even when we don't feel those, warm, fuzzy feelings, we can still choose to love through our actions.
Anne felt like she had tried everything to get through to Glenn, to, spark some affection. But he remained unresponsive. She was on the verge of giving up.
Chapman proposed this radical experiment.
Okay.
Anne should try speaking Glenn's love language consistently for 6 months, even though, she was feeling resentful towards him. Goal was to see if meeting his emotional needs could create a shift in their relationship.
Wow, that's a bold approach. It must have been hard for Anne to put her own feelings aside by focus on Glenn's needs. What was his primary love language?
Acts of service. Glenn was a man of few words. But he responded positively when Anne did things for him, cooking his favorite meals, keeping the house tidy, running errands he disliked. These were the things that made him feel loved, appreciated.
And did it work? Did consistently speaking his love language, did it change anything?
The results were astonishing. At first, Glenn was skeptical, almost dismissive. But as Anne continued speaking his love language, he slowly began to soften. He started giving her positive feedback, expressing appreciation for her efforts. And eventually, he even started reciprocating, doing things for Anne that aligned with her love language, which turned out to be quality time.
It's a reminder that even in those most challenging relationships, there's always hope. Sometimes meeting our partner's needs, it's the catalyst for positive change. It's almost like a form of emotional investment. You pour love in, right? Or even if it feels one-sided at first, there's a chance you'll see a return on that investment.
Exactly. And it highlights the power of understanding those deeper needs. Chapman shares another compelling story about Brent, this husband ready to leave his wife, Becky, because he believed he'd fallen out of love. He was convinced he'd found this, new love that would bring him happiness.
The classic tale of infatuation, right?
Yeah.
The allure of something new. It's so easy to get caught up in those intense feelings, mistake them for lasting love. But Chapman challenged Brent to consider, had he truly tried to rekindle the love in his existing marriage? Had he been speaking Becky's love language?
It turned out that Becky's primary love language was words of affirmation. She craved compliments, words of encouragement, expressions of appreciation. But Brent, who was more action-oriented, he'd been neglecting this crucial need.
Another case of speaking the wrong language.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did Brent try to win back his new love, or did he give his marriage another shot?
With Chapman's encouragement, Brent agreed to try marriage counseling. He began to understand the power of speaking Becky's love language. He started making this conscious effort to compliment her, to express his appreciation, to tell her how much he valued her.
And did those efforts pay off? Was he able to rekindle the love he thought was lost?
Remarkably, yes. The love in their marriage rekindled. Brent realized that the new love he had felt, it was merely a fleeting infatuation, a distraction from the real love he had with Becky.
It's a reminder that sometimes the spark we're looking for, it's already there. We just need to learn how to fan the flames.
It's a powerful testament to the idea that love can be rekindled, even when it feels like it's faded. Sometimes all it takes is a shift in perspective and a willingness to speak each other's love languages.
And sometimes it takes a crisis to wake us up, right? Make us realize what's truly important.
Exactly.
Chapman, he then introduces us to John and Susan, a couple married for over 30 years.
Yeah.
They had this, comfortable life, no major conflicts. But Susan, she felt deeply unloved.
It's a reminder that even in long-term relationships, when things seem fine on the surface, those underlying emotional needs, they can go unmet.
Right.
Creating this sense of distance dissatisfaction.
Exactly. John was baffled by Susan's feelings. He thought he was showing love by, doing things for her, cooking dinner, taking care of chores, being a good provider. He prided himself on being reliable, helpful.
But he was speaking the wrong language, wasn't he? He was showing love through actions. But Susan, she needed something else.
Susan's primary love language was quality time. She yearned for his focused attention, his genuine interest in her thoughts, her feelings. She wanted meaningful conversations, shared experiences, to feel like they were truly connecting as a couple.
It's so easy to fall into routines in long-term relationships, right?
Right.
To assume we know what our partner needs. But as we've seen throughout this deep dive, sometimes those assumptions can be way off base.
When John finally understood Susan's love language, he committed to spending 15 minutes each night just talking to her, giving her his undivided attention. No distractions, no multitasking, just genuine connection.
And how did that simple shift affect their relationship?
The results. Transformative. Susan felt heard, seen, cherished, and in turn, she started doing acts of service for John, things she knew he appreciated, like organizing his tools or, making his favorite breakfast on weekends.
They each made a conscious effort to speak the other's love language, and it revitalized their marriage.
It's a beautiful reminder that it's never too late to rekindle connection, right? Deep in love. Even after decades together, the key is to remain curious about each other's needs and to make that conscious effort to speak each other's language.
And sometimes the most profound expressions of love, they're found in the simplest of gestures.
It's inspiring, right, to see how understanding, applying these simple concepts can have such a profound impact on relationships. Imagine a world where we all had this awareness, this ability to, decipher that unspoken language of love.
It would certainly transform the way we interact, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not just about romantic relationships either. Think about how these principles, they could apply to your friendships, family dynamics, even in the workplace.
It's like having this secret decoder ring for human connection. And the best part, it's never too late to start learning, even if you've been with someone for years, decades even. Tuning into their love language can completely shift the dynamic.
Remember John and Susan?
Right.
30 years of marriage, right?
Right.
And the simple shift in how they expressed love brought them closer than ever before.
It really highlights how our needs, our preferences, they can evolve over time. So having those open conversations, right, about what makes each of you feel loved, it's crucial.
It's like a relationship checkup.
Yeah.
A chance to make sure you're both on the same page, that your love languages are still in sync.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of those small, everyday gestures. Leaving a little note for someone whose love language is words of affirmation. Offering to help with a chore for someone who values acts of service. These seemingly insignificant acts. They can speak volumes.
It's the thoughtfulness behind the action,
Yeah.
right, that truly resonates.
Absolutely. And it's not about becoming fluent in all 5 languages overnight. It's about being aware and making a conscious effort to speak the language that matters most to your loved ones.
Right.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the 5 love languages, I want to leave you with this. What if understanding these languages is the key to unlocking deeper connection? Not just in romantic relationships, but in all areas of your life.
Imagine approaching all your interactions with this new awareness. How might it change your communication with your colleagues, your children, your friends? It's an exciting thought, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for today. We hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights for you. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of human connection.
Did you get any of that?